Chapter 37 Major Tom. Out of the three of us, Miranda had almost always been the sweetest to August, hugging him and playing with him long after Ella and I had moved on to play something else. Even as we got older, Miranda always made sure to try to include August in our conversation, ask him how he's doing, talk to him about Avatar or Star Wars or Bone or something she knew he liked. It was Miranda who had given Augie the astronaut helmet he wore practically every day of the year when he was 5 or 6. She would call him Major Tom and they would sing Space Oddity by David Bowie together. It was their little thing. They knew all the words and would blast it on the iPod and sing the song out loud. Since Miranda's always been really good about calling us as soon as she got home from summer camp, I was a little surprised when I didn't hear from her. I even texted her and she didn't reply. I think maybe she had ended up staying in the camp longer now that she was a counselor. Maybe she met a cute guy. Then I realized her Facebook were that she had actually been back home for a full 2 weeks. So I sent her an IM and we chatted online a bit, but she didn't give me a reason for not calling, which I thought was bizarre. Miranda had always been a little flaky, so I figured that all it was. We made plans to meet downtown, but then I had to cancel because we were driving out to visit Tata and Papa for the weekend. So I ended up not seeing either Miranda or Ella until the first day of school, and I have to admit, I was shocked. Miranda looked so different. Her hair was cut in this super cute bob that she had dyed bright pink of all things, and she was wearing a striped tube top that seemed way inappropriate for school and was totally not her usual style. Miranda had always been such a prude about clothes, and here she was all pink hat and tube topped. But it was just the way she looked that was different. She was acting differently too. I can't say she was nice because she was, but she seemed kind of distant, like I was a casual friend. It was the weirdest thing in the world. At lunch, the three of us sat together like we always used to, but the dynamics had shifted. It was obvious to me that Ella and Miranda had gotten better together a few times during the summer without me, though they never actually said that. I pretended not to be at all upset while we talked, though I could feel my face getting hot, the smile being fake. Although Ella was not as over the top as Miranda, I noticed a change in her usual style too. It's like they had talked to each other beforehand about redoing their image at new school, but hadn't bothered to clue me in. I admit, I had always thought I was above this kind of typical teenage pettiness, but I felt a lump in my throat throughout lunch. My voice quivered and I said, "See you later" when the bell rang. That's all. Chapter 37.
Chapter 38 After School. I hear we are driving you home today. It was Miranda in eighth period. She had just sat down at the desk right behind me. I had forgotten that Mom had called Miranda's mother the night before to ask if she could drive me home from school. "You don't have to," I answered instinctively, casually. My mom can pick me up. I thought she had to pick Ozzy up or something. It, it turns out that she can pick me up afterward. She just texted me, not a problem. Oh, okay. Thanks. It was alright on my part, but I couldn't see sitting in the car with a new Miranda. After school, I ducked into a restroom to avoid bumping into Miranda's mother outside. 5 hours later, I walked out of the school, ran 3 blocks to the bus stop, hopped on the M86 to the Central Park West, and took the subway home. Hey there, sweetie, Mom said the moment I stepped through the front door. How was your first day? I was starting to wonder where you guys were. We stopped for pizza. Incredible how easily a light can shift through your lips. Is Miranda not with you? She seemed surprised that Miranda was right behind me. She went straight home. We have a lot of homework. On your first day? Yes, on our first day. I yelled with completely surprised Mom. But before she could say anything, I said, school was fine. It's really big though. The kids seem nice. I wanted to give her enough information so she wouldn't need to ask me more. How was this first day of school? Mom hesitated, her eyebrows still high up on her forehead from when I just started a second earlier. Okay, she said slowly, like she was letting out a breath. What do you mean, okay? I said, was good or bad? He said it was good. So why don't you think it wasn't good? I didn't say it wasn't good. Gee, Veer, what's wrong with you? Don't forget I asked anything at all, I answered, and stormed dramatically into Ozzy's room and slammed the door. He was on his base station and didn't even look up. I heard how zombified his video game made him. So, how was school? I said, scooching Daisy over so I could sit on his back next to him. Fine, he answered, but still not looking up from his game. Ozzy, I'm talking to you. I pulled the base station out of his hands. Hey, he said angrily, how was school? I said fine. He yelled back, grabbing the base station back from me. Was your night to you? Yes. No one was mean. He put the base station down and looked up at me as if I had just asked the dumbest question in the world. Why would you be mean? He said. It was the first time in his life that I heard him be sarcastic like that. I didn't he had it in him.
The Padawan bites the dust. I'm not sure at what point that night Augie had cut off his Padawan braid, or why that made me really mad. I had always found his obsession with everything Star Wars kind of geeky, and that braid in the back of his hair with a little beads was just awful, but he has always been so proud of it, of how long it took him to grow it, of how he had chosen the beads himself in the craft store in Soho. He and Christopher, his best friend, used to play with lightsabers and Star would stop whenever they got together. And they had both started growing their braids at the same time. When August cut his brain off that night, without an explanation, without telling me beforehand, which was surprising, or even calling Christopher, I was just so upset I can't even explain why. I've seen Augie brushing his hair in the bathroom mirror. He meticulously tries to get every hair in place. He tilts his head to look at himself from different angles, like there's some magic perspective inside the mirror that could have changed the dimensions of his face. Mom knocked on the door after dinner. She looked drained, and I realized that between me and Augie, today has been a tough day for her too. So, you want to tell me what's up? She asked Niley softly. Not now, okay? I answered. I was reading. I was tired. Maybe later I'll be up to tell her about Miranda, but not now. I check in before you go to bed, she said, and then she came over and kissed me on the top of my head. Can Daisy sleep with me tonight? Sure, I'll bring her in later. Don't forget to come back, I said as she left. I promised. But she didn't come back that night. Dad did. He told me Augie had had a bad first day, and Mom was helping him through it. He asked me how my day has gone, and I told him fine. He said he didn't believe me for a second, and I told him Miranda and Ella was acting like Jack. I didn't mention how I took the subway home by myself, though. He said nothing tests friendships like high school, and then proceeded to poke fun at the fact that I was reading War and Peace. Not real fun, of course, since I heard he bragged to people that he had a 50-year-old who was reading Tolstoy, but he liked to read me about where I was in the book, in the war part or in the peace part, and if there was anything in there about Napoleon days as a hip-hop dancer. It was silly stuff, but Dad always managed to make everyone laugh, and sometimes that's all you need to feel better. Don't be mad at Mom, he said as he bent down to give me a goodnight kiss. You know how much he worries about Augie. I know, I acknowledge. Want the light on or off? It's getting kind of late, he said, pausing by the night light switch at the door. Can you bring Daisy in first? 2 seconds later, he came back with Daisy dangling in his arms, and he laid her down next to me on the bed. Good night, sweetheart, he said, kissing my forehead. He kissed Daisy on her forehead too. Good night, girlie, sweet dreams.
Chapter 40. An apparition at the door. Once I got up in the middle of the night because I was 30, and I saw Mom standing outside Augie's room. Her hand was on the doorknob, her forehead leaning on the door, which was ajar. She wasn't going in his room or stepping out, just standing right outside the door, as if she was listening to the sound of his breathing as he slept. The hallway lights were out. The only thing illuminating her was the blue night light in August's bedroom. She looked godlike, standing there, or maybe I should say angelic. I tried to walk back into my room without disturbing her, but she heard me and walked over to me. Is Augie okay? I asked. I knew that sometime he would wake up choking on his own saliva if he accidentally turned over on his back. Oh, he's fine, she said, wrapping her arms around me. She walked me back into my room, pulled the covers over me, and kissed me good night. She never explained what she was doing outside his door, and I never asked. I wonder how many nights she stood outside his door, and I wonder if she ever stood outside my door like that.
This is Chapter 41, Breakfast Wonder by AJ Palacio. Can you pick me up from school today? I said the next morning, smearing some cream cheese on my bagel. Mom was making August's lunch, American cheese on whole wheat bread, soft enough for Augie to eat. While August sat eating our meal at the table, Dad was getting ready to go to work. Now that I was in high school, the new school routine was going to be that Dad and I would take the subway together in the morning, which meant his having to leave 15 minutes earlier than usual. Then I would get off at my stop and he would keep going, and Mom was going to pick me up after school in the car. I was going to call Miranda's mother to see if she could drive you home again, Mom answered. No, Mom, I said quickly. You pick me up, or I will just take the subway. You know I don't want you to take the subway by yourself yet, she answered. Mom, I'm 15. Everybody my age takes the subway by themselves. She can't take the subway home, said Dad from the other room, adjusting his tie as he stepped into the kitchen. Why can't Miranda's mother just pick her up again? Mom argued with him. She's old enough to take the subway by herself, Dad insisted. Mom looked at both of us. Is something going on? She didn't address her question to either one of us in particular. You would know if you had come back to check on me, I said playfully. Like you said you would. Oh God, Via, said Mom, remembering now how she had completely ditched me last night. She put down the knife she was using to cut Augie's grave in half, still choking harder for him because of the size of his plate. I'm so sorry. I fell asleep in Augie's room by the time I woke up. I know, I nodded indifferently. Mom came over, put her hands on my cheeks, and lifted my face to look at her. I'm really, really sorry, she whispered. I could tell she was. It's okay, I said. Via, Mom, it's fine. This time I really meant it. She looked so genuinely sorry, I just wanted to let her off the hook. She kissed and hugged me, then returned to the grapes. So is something going on with Miranda? She asked. Just that she's acting like a complete jerk, I said. Miranda's not a jerk, Augie quickly chimed in. She can be, I yelled. Believe me. Okay then, I'll pick you up, no problem, Mom said decisively, sweeping the half-ribs into a snack bag with the side of her knife. That was the plan all along anyway. I'll pick Augie up from school in the car, and then I'll pick you up. We'll probably get there about a 3:45. No, I said firmly, before she'd even finish. Isabel, she can take the subway, said Dad impatiently. She's a big girl now. She's reading War and Peace, for crying out loud. What does War and Peace have to do with anything? Answered Mom, clearly annoyed. It means you don't have to pick her up in the car like she's a little girl, he said sternly. Via, are you ready? Get your bag and let's go. I'm ready, I said, pulling on my backpack. Bye, Mom, bye, Augie. I kissed them both quickly and headed toward the door. Do you even have a Metro card? Mom said after me. Of course she had a Metro card, answered Dad, fully exasperated. Jeez, Mama, stop worrying so much. Bye, he said, kissing her on the cheek. Bye, big boy, he said to August, kissing him on the top of his head. I'm proud of you. Have a good day. Bye, Daddy. You too. Daddy and I jogged down the stoop stairs and headed down the block. Call me after school before you get on the subway, Mom yelled at me from the window. I didn't even turn around, but I waved my hand at her, so she would know I heard her. Dad did turn around, walking backward for a few steps. War and Peace, Isabel, he called out, smiling as he pointed at me. War and Peace.
Genetics 101. Both sides of Dad's family were Jews from Russia and Poland. Papa's
Grandparents fled the pogroms and ended up in New York City at the turn of the century. Dada's parents fled the Nazis and ended up in Argentina in the 40s. Papa and Tata met at a dance on the Lower East Side while she was in town visiting a cousin. They got married, moved to Bayside, and had Dad and Uncle Ben. Mom's side of the family is from Brazil, except for her mother, my beautiful grands and her dad, Augusto, who died before I was born. The rest of Mom's family, all her glamorous aunts, uncles, and cousins, still live in Alto Leblin, a resi suburb south of Rio. Rance and Augusto moved to Boston in the early 60s and had Mom and Aunt Kate, who's married to Uncle Porter. Mom and Dad met at Brown University and have been together ever since. Isabel and Ned like two peas in a pod. They moved to New York right after college, had me a few years later. They moved to a breakdown house in North River Heights, the hippie stroller capital of Upper Manhattan, when I was about a year old. Not one person in the exotic mix of my family gene pool has ever shown any obvious signs of having what August has. I've pored over Granny's superior pictures of long-dead relatives in babushkas, black and white snapshots of distant cousins in crisp white linen suits, soldiers in uniform, ladies would be half-headers, Polaroids of bell-bottomed teenagers and long-haired hippies. And not once have I been able to detect even the slightest trace of August's face in their faces. Not a one. But after August was born, my parents underwent genetic counseling. They were told that August had what seemed to be a previously unknown type of mandibulofacial dysautosis caused by an autosomal recessive mutation in the TCOF gene, which is located on chromosome 5, complicated by a hemifacial microsomia characteristic of OAV spectrum. Sometimes these mutations occur during pregnancy. Sometimes they are inherited from one parent carrying the dominant gene. Sometimes they are caused by the interaction of many genes, possibly in combination with environmental factors. This is called multifactorial inheritance. In August's case, the doctors were able to identify one of the single nucleotide deletion mutation that he made on his face. The weird things, though you would never know it from looking at them, both my parents carried that mutant gene, and I carry it too.
Chapter 43. The Punnett Square. If I have children, there is a 1 in 2 chance that I will pass on a defective gene to them. That doesn't mean they'll look like August, but they'll carry the gene that got double dose in August and help make him the way he is. If I marry someone who has the same defective gene, there's a 1 in 2 chance that our kids will carry the gene and look totally normal, a 1 in 4 chance that our kid will not carry the gene at all, and a 1 in 4 chance that our kids will look like August. If August has children with someone who doesn't have a trace of gene, there is a 100% probability that their kids will inherit the gene, but there's 0% chance that their kids will have a double dose of it, like August, which means they carry the gene no matter what, but they could look totally normal. If he marries someone who has the gene, their kids will have the same odds as my kids. This only explains the part of August that's explainable. There's that other part of his genetic makeup that's not inherited but just incredibly bad luck. Countless doctors have drawn little tic-tac-toe grids from my parents over the years to try to explain the genetic lottery to them. Genetics uses these Punnett squares to determine inheritance, recessive and dominant genes, probabilities, and chance. But for all they know, there's more they don't know. They can try to forecast the odds, but they can't guarantee them. They use terms like germ-like mosaicism, chromosome rearrangement, or delayed mutation to explain why their science is not an exact science. I actually like how doctors talk. I like the sound of science. I like how words you don't understand explain things you can understand. There are countless people under words like germ-like mosaicism, chromosome rearrangement, or delayed mutation. Countless babies who'll never be born, like me.
Hello, I'm Trần Thị Hà Anh, and now I'll read the chapter Out with the Old. Miranda and Ella blast off. They attach themselves to a new crowd destined for high school glory. After a week of painful lunches, where all they would do was talk about people that didn't interest me, I decided to make a clean break for it. They asked no questions. I told no lies. We just went our separate ways. I didn't even mind them after a while. I stopped going to lunch for about a week, though, to make the transition easier, to avoid the fake, "Oh shoot, there's no room for you at the table, Olivia." It was easier just to go to the library and read. I finished War and Peace in October. It was amazing. People think it's such a hard read, but it's really just a soap opera with lots of characters. People falling in love, fighting for love, dying for love. I want to be in love like that someday. I want my husband to love me the way Prince Andrei loved Natasha. I ended up hanging out with a girl named Eleanor, who I'd known for my days at PS22, though we'd gone to different middle schools. Eleanor had always been a really smart girl, a little bit of crybaby back then, but nice. I'd never realized how funny she was. Not laugh out loud daddy funny, but full of great quips. And she never knew how lighthearted I could be. Eleanor, I guess, has always been under the impression that I was very serious, and as it turned out, she never liked Miranda and Ella. She thought they were stuck up. I gained entry to Eleanor to the smart kids table at lunch. It was a larger group that I'd been accustomed to hanging out with, and a more diverse crowd. It included Eleanor's boyfriend, Kevin, who would definitely become class president someday, a few teachy guys, girls like Eleanor who were members of the yearbook committee and the debate club, and a quiet guy named Justin who had small round glasses and played the violin, and who I had an instant crush on. When I'd see Miranda and Ella, who were now hanging out with a super popular set, we'd say, "Hey, what's up?" and move on. Occasionally Miranda would ask me how August was doing, and then tell him I say hello. This I never did, not to spite Miranda, but because August was in his own world these days. There were times at home that we never crossed paths.
Hi, I'm Bukanchi, and this is chapter 45, October 31, from the book Wonder by R.J. Palacio. Grant had died the night before Halloween. Since then, even though it's been 4 years, this has always been a sad time of year for me, for Mom too, though she doesn't always say it. Instead, she immerses herself in getting August's costume ready, since we all know Halloween is his favorite time of year. This year was no different. August really wanted to be a Star Wars character called Boba Fett, so Mom looked for a Boba Fett costume in August size, which strangely enough was out of stock everywhere. She went to every online store, found a few on eBay that were going for an outrageous amount, and finally ended up buying a Jango Fett costumes that she then converted into a Boba Fett costume by painting it green. I would say, in all, she must have spent 2 weeks working on the stupid costume, and no, I won't mention the fact that Mom has never made any of my costume, because it really had no bearing on anything at all. The morning of Halloween, I woke up thinking about Grant, which made me really sad and weepy. Dad kept telling me to hurry up and get dressed, which just stressed me out even more. And suddenly I started crying. I just wanted to stay home. So Dad took August to school that morning, and Mom said I could stay home. And the two of us cried together for a while. One thing I knew for sure, however much I missed Grant, Mom must have missed her more. All those time August was clinging to life after surgery, all those rush trips to the ER. Ren has always been there for Mom. It felt good to cry with Mom, for both of us. At some point, Mom had the idea of our watching The Ghost and Mrs. Muir together, which was one of our all-time favorite black and white movies. I agreed that that was a great idea. I think I probably would have used this weeping session as an opportunity to tell Mom everything that was going on at school with Miranda and Ella. But just as we were sitting down in front of the DVD player, the phone rang. It was a nurse from August's school calling to tell Mom that August had a stomachache and should be picked up. So much for the old movies and the mother-daughter bonding. Mom picked August up, and the moment he came home, he went straight to the bathroom and threw up. Then he went to his bed and pulled the covers over his head. Mom took his temperature, brought him some hot tea, and assumed that August's mom role again. Via's mom, who had come out for a little while, was put away. I understood, though. August was in bad shape. Neither one of us asked him why he had worn his bleeding scream costume to school instead of the Boba Fett costume Mom had made for him. If it annoyed Mom to see the costume she had worked on for 2 weeks tossed on the floor unused, she didn't show it.
My name is Nguyễn Khánh Duy, and this is chapter 45, October 31st of the novel Wonder. Grant had died the night before Halloween. Since then, even though it's been 4 years, this has always been a sad time of year for me. For Mom too, though she doesn't always say it. Instead, she immersed herself into getting August's costume ready, since we all know Halloween is his favorite time of the year. This year was no different. August really wanted to be a character called Boba Fett, so Mom looked for a Boba Fett costume, which strangely enough was outstocked everywhere. She went online to the online store, found a few on eBay that were going for an outrageous price, and finally ended up buying a Jango Fett costume that she then converted into a Boba Fett costume by painting it green. I would say in all, she must have spent 2 weeks working on the stupid costume. And no, I won't mention the fact that Mom has never made any of my costumes, because it really has no bearing on anything at all. The morning of Halloween, I woke up thinking about Grant, which made me really sad and weepy. My dad kept telling me to hurry up and get dressed, which just stressed me out even more. And suddenly I started crying. I just wanted to stay home. So Dad took August to school that morning, and Mom said I could stay home, and the two of us cried together for a while. One thing I knew for sure, however much I missed Grant, Mom must have missed her more. All those time, August was clinging to life after a surgery. All those rush trips to the ER, Grant has always been there for Mom. It felt good to cry with Mom for both of us. At some point, Mom had the idea of watching The Ghost and Mr. Muir together, which was one of our all-time favorite black and white movies. I agreed that that was a great idea. I think I probably would have used this weeping session as an opportunity to tell Mom everything that was going on at school with Miranda and Ella. But just as we were sitting down in front of the DVD player, the phone rang. It was the nurse from August's schools calling to tell Mom that August had a stomachache and should be picked up.
So much for the old movie and the mother-daughter bonding. Mom picked August up, and the moment he came home, he went straight to the bathroom and threw up. Then he went to his bed and pulled the covers over his head. Mom took his temperature, bought him some hot tea, and assumed the August mom role again. Via's mom, who had come out for a little while, was put away. I understood, though August was in bad shape. Neither one of us asked him why he hadn't worn his bleeding scream costume to school instead of Boba Fett costume Mom had made for him. If it annoyed Mom to see the costume she had worked on for 2 weeks tossed on the floor unused, she didn't show it.